Welcome. I am interviewing Leanne Walker and going to spend some time chatting about her business and an NGO, an NPO that she runs, and looking forward just to spending a little bit of time with Leanne, getting some insights into who she is and how she's been coping in these tough times. So Leanne is somebody who is, and I don't use this word lightly, but she is a genius when it comes to IT. If
Thank you.
there is, it just somehow she's got at her fingertips how this technology works. And of course, I'm absolutely clueless. So she is most often the person that I call or WhatsApp the other end of the phone. So Leanne, IT is your absolute sort of, it's your bread and butter, but it's also something that you just get. What do you love about it?
Thank you. I think IT is just something that allows your brain to think and challenges you in that sense. And so I live on that reward of using your mind. So that's what I love about IT is that it does give you some challenges. It can get mediocre in the sense or boring once you start getting into repetitive stuff. Um, but even stuff that's technically advanced, you know, that does excite me in a sense that there's stuff that I can do repeatedly in a year that people would put on their CV as like one of their achievements on a project for a year or something. So yeah, so that does. I have been exposed um, both at an international layer and the client base that I can work with to get this very diverse, high end skill set.
And it's something, I mean, this is a field that's constantly advancing and growing. And so you're having to stay on top of your game the whole time.
Absolutely. And the other big challenge that we have is that the whole cloud is coming to play. And so a lot of the stuff that I deal with is moving into the cloud, but there's still a large number of people who use what's called on-premise systems um, or a hybrid system with the cloud that still needs that. But it is a large adaptation to see how things change and how the cloud has taken over. And in 2020, with COVID and lockdown and that, and everyone moving online, the cloud expansion has just exploded. Um, but the reverse of that is that security and hackers are
Uh,
at top of their game right now.
yeah, so you're battling. I mean, I think there've been times when I've contacted you and you're just saying, well, just wait, I'm in basically, and I just kind of see you as like this war of the worlds, battling it out with you and some hacker or hacker team. Uh,
Yeah. And I mean that's the whole nice thing about it is that that you're trying to keep ahead of the curve with from a security point of view and technology.
and Leanne, you actually have been running your own business for many years, and so we're talking about some of the adjustments and learning curve you've been on um, from a technical point of view. But how have you managed from a business point of view?
So that's sure. Um, Business has changed in the last 20 years that I've been in, just short of that in my own business.
Yeah.
Um, Having had partnerships along the way and things didn't always work out from their point of view, um, having a big staff team to going back small again. Um, so I've been through all of that, and the 2008 financial crash sort of had a real negative effect on my business at that point. So yeah, it's yeah, 20 years I've seen a lot. Um, and I know that sounds so cliche, but it is. Um, but I think the thing is just to be, as an entrepreneur, is never to stay down but to get up, and to reinvent not only yourself but your business, and to keep up with the times. And sometimes the way that you did things 5 years ago doesn't work today, and to acknowledge that, and to be able to keep up with the times. And your customers change, the business world changes, regulations change. um, so yeah, there's so many forces at play that it's just really challenging, not, and that's apart from just technology changing.
Yes. And what you're describing is you've got to stay on your toes. You know, your antenna are out all the time as to what's changing, who's changing, what's happening, and as you say, you're staying nimble in order to keep up with the times. And as you say, over 20 years, you've been through all kinds of iterations of what business life looks like, and you're still here to tell the tale.
Sure. I mean, one of the other big challenges is when you're working with small business, medium-sized business, and then even into corporates and multinationals, um, that some small businesses don't have budget to stay with the times. Some corporates are slow to move with the times, but there's also a level of stability and security that they're looking at. Um, and so the adoption of the cloud has sort of bridged that gap in a large way between small and big business, that everyone, the cloud just moves, and business or small business doesn't dictate it. You pay a monthly fee and you get a service. So you're no longer, well, we can't afford new hardware this year, so we're not going to upgrade, um, or we want to just keep things as they are because they know it works. Where the cloud is just a challenge, and constantly changing and upgrading.
So what I'm hearing you say, and we have these discussions on the wisdoms chats, is, you know, is the fourth industrial revolution and this huge movement towards greater and greater digitization, and you're talking about the cloud because that's where so much is now happening. It is. Do you see this as an opportunity uh, opening up for small businesses, or is it going to become a greater challenge for just, you know, entrepreneurs to battle against the tech giants of the day?
So I think what it's done is it's created a level playing field, um, which is a good thing and a bad thing. So it gives access to small businesses to software and functionality and enterprise resources that they just could never have afforded or used before. And high availability and clustering and all those big words that only the corporates could afford, is now available to small businesses. And so small business needs to take advantage of that at a considerably low cost, comparatively to what they could have afforded. Um, and but it also, from an entrepreneur point of view, is to know what's out there, and when you're working with clients, especially in the small and medium business, that you can help them uh, be focused on what's available. And so that means a challenge to you as a business person, as a consultant, and that not only at IT, that could be as an accountant and all those kind of things, that you can use the cloud for your stuff. If you take an accountant, um, they don't have to worry about payroll tables or anything like that. It's just there if they're using some sort of payroll system in the cloud. So, so it helps them change their core business to worrying about the technology and just delivering a service to their customers. So that's a good thing and a bad thing in the same time.
Explain how it's bad for you.
So you've got businesses now who can just focus on their core competency and their key service delivery, and they're not having to worry about having their own in-house IT systems, having to do backups, um, things going wrong. They can simply take somebody in another machine, the kid's machine, worst case scenario, log into the cloud and carry on working. So that's good. Where it obviously people that business relied on small businesses to consult and that and offer those little in-house networks. Those kind of business models have changed and that you can't do that. But you need to be adaptive as a small business owner, um, to that change and take the next line, kind of thing. And there's a season for everything, and including business. Um, and there's a lot of jobs as well that existed today that didn't exist 5 years ago, 10 years ago. A social media officer, if you went and said 15 years ago, we can have social media officers in companies, they would have laughed at you. Now that's one of the top positions in any business, um, that has the CEO's attention of who's running that, kind of thing. And so that's where the adaptation has to come in, that in another 10 years' time, you're going to have roles in the business. So if a door closes on what you're doing, you need to look for the next door, which may be bigger. And that's what where my business went, is that I offered a very niche service to small business, um, and got into that sort of rut of that small business offering, and that very uh, low profit, business model, and being able to move up the ladder, if we can call that, and get into big business and continue to work with small business, and non-profits as well along the way, and to be able to offer those services, in a meaningful way. But from a business point of view, that that's been beneficial to me as a business owner, to make sure that you're getting bigger returns for less effort.
Yeah, it's so fascinating what you're saying. It just, and I think sometimes small businesses, medium enterprises, uh, we get so locked into what we're doing on a daily basis, our core business, that sometimes we forget to look up and to say, well, what else is happening and how could I be doing this better, and using technology that is available. And I think that's actually what lockdown afforded many of us, is that stopping moment to say, could I be doing this better? Could I be doing it more efficiently? And yes, as you say, that might mean that some of the suppliers and providers that we've been using, we're now making it more in-house. We're doing it more ourselves because it is as simple as that. But it also means that sometimes we need to find expertise in different ways, and sometimes it's in information, it's in how things work, and yeah, so it really is. It's a good wake up call for us, and I think you're at the cutting edge of that. And so would be a go-to person to say, well, how would I go about this? Um, so thanks, Leanne. You've given us lots of food for
Sure.
thought.
Yeah. Uh, well, I mean, one of the things, that I've seen a lot of is conferences and, training sessions and everything were in person in a venue. So a venue was making money by selling coffee and eats and having people in their room every day. And people were spending money to get to these venues, um, sometimes having to fly in, lose a day in traveling, where now we can do it online, um, and cut down all those costs, and with conference venues suffering. But we've lost that little network opportunity. So if you're in a conference facility or a training, when you're talking over a cup of coffee, that's when networking happens. So we lost that networking. So something like a venue, a conference venue, can definitely, and businesses can look at how do we get people together in a networking way that's more meaningful, and leave the training in an online space. So we're creating this hybrid world of not losing that in-person contact, but also making it effective. And so trainings and those kind of things can also be more effective. The other part of that is that if somebody was going up to a conference, whatever, and you've got 10 salespeople in Cape Town, only 2 people would go. Where now, if you've got it online, all 10 people can partake. So there's a lot of benefit to that.
Yeah.
But you can still have this hybrid environment where you are um, networking. And that's maybe, I don't think anyone has the answer how that's going to look in the next year or two. But we can't carry on just doing online, for argument's sake.
I love that word hybrid because it assumes that we can make the best of all worlds, and that's really what we want, isn't it? Is that we want to maximize and utilize every tool that's at our disposal to achieve what we want. And I think your example of the venues and the rethinking that we have to do around that, whether it's conferences or events, there's a whole lot of thinking and opportunity that lies around that. Um, so that's exciting. That's exciting. And that's the way we have to see, if you are entrepreneurial minded, that there's opportunity that's lying here. That technology is going to enable, but we still remain people. And as you say, as people, we still need to connect. So yeah, that sounds very exciting.
And for me, and the value coming into the organization as well, is to always do upskilling and to provide training and to people, to young people, to inexperienced people. And so when we start doing these hybrid online training, they suddenly get exposed to these training events where typically it was the senior people that would go to conferences and training facilities and those kind of things. And the young people were never really getting the opportunity at, we're now in a hybrid, you can have a whole team, and you can do that continual upskilling and empowering across the community and diversity.
Yeah, as you're saying, that now creates opportunities for, because the budget can be reduced but still expanded. You can uh, offer more uh, at a less budget, or you can keep your budget and just expand the depth and breadth of what you're offering. Say very, very exciting days ahead. And you'll be at the coalface, at the cutting edge, as I say, of that. uh, Leanne, I mentioned when I introduced you that you're running this business, you sort of in the tech world, but you are also the founder, and I don't know whether you what your title is, but certainly the founder of a non-profit organization called Be True, Be True to Me, and that's and I think about the 30 years or so, can you believe it, 30 years that I've known you, that you've transitioned from the person that I knew then to the Leanne that I know today. And that's been a journey for you over a long period of time, and it's involved a lot of challenges. And I know there's been some rewards, and we'll definitely go come back to that. But I don't want to make less of the fact that it hasn't been an easy road for you. Uh, Tell us a little bit about what it's meant for you and some of the challenges you faced in this transition.
Oh, so there's many questions to answer there. So I think just to practically be true to me is an organization just supporting transgender individuals and gender diverse people, and to provide it on the ground. There's been a lot of organizations that do advocacy work, and have some real value, but there was a big lack of being able just to provide community-based support, between people, um, kind of thing. My role is executive director as an official term, as well as the founder. Being a nonprofit, it is properly set up with a whole board of directors and a team that we work with, and it's a team. Um, it's not one person running the show, kind of thing, and that's one of my passions, is to empower people to take, and to work with people and to run support groups and kind of thing. It's not just where we're at. Um, where do we go from a transition? I think for me, just getting access to information was so hard many years ago, um, as well as getting information that's relevant to us in South Africa. So a lot of the information you have may be relevant to, what's called the global north. We're here in the global south, so your Americans, your Europeans, um, they've got access to information and ways of doing it there, where in the global south things don't always work the same. And I mean, that's a very general term, but there's a big divide from in access to information, the way things work. Um, we are actually really lucky in South Africa to having a constitution that's extremely protective of people's rights, of people's identities, and being allowed to transition, and just having that facility, um, and that is very concerning, because it's only limited to us in South Africa. Even people in our neighboring countries are persecuted, are, are threatened, both from a legal and a safety point of view. So that's a lot of where the work I've done. Um, your heart gets broken every day when you know what's happening around the rest of the African continent, um, and in the global south into South America, and other countries as well. But yeah, so personally, I mean, it's been a real reward that I was able to transition, that I have supportive people around me, supportive friends, and people that understood where I was coming from, and made the journey easy. Yes, I've lost friends along the way. I lost some of my family along the way, which doesn't help. But once you know that you've been true to yourself, and being who you are, um, and that you can have that inner freedom, that's all that counts.
So much courage, Leanne, but it's also it's good to know that we live in a country that, although the information, as you say, wasn't necessarily easily available, and that's something that you, as Be True to Me, is working towards, to ensure that education and that information is more accessible. The fact that we have the constitution we have, that enables a huge group of people to feel that they are supported in a structure and in a system that enables them to, as you say, be true to themselves. Um, and but that doesn't mean that there isn't cost, personal cost, that you've had to go through, and that you see others having to go through, even more in more difficult situations. And you mentioned in the Be True to Me that you offer a lot of support, or you offer support to people going through transition or transgender. And just help us to understand, Be True to Me is specifically focused on the trans community or the whole LGBTQ community? How does, and then the support, what is it that you're offering?
Okay, so what we offering is really to the LGBTIQ community, but it's focused around the trans-centric people, maybe with some intersex people, um, as well as yeah. So the parents and uh, organizations that trans people work in. So if somebody is transitioning in a workplace, we'll come into a company and helps do some sensitizing training to help people transition in a workplace, in school, kind of thing. So part of our kind of thing is providing support groups in a small group environment. And obviously now with lockdown, that's moved into an online space, which has exploded and really taken away any geographical barrier, access to transport and those kind of things. It's brought in a new barrier of access to data, kind of thing. But we can come back to that one. We then also provide support to parents, specific and guardians and caregivers. I'm using parents as a collective term here. Um, for adolescents or even younger trans children, um, and and then working in schools with different education institutions, both private and government, in basic education, um, working with like the Department of Home Affairs, where you have legal gender recognition in South Africa, but the process is extremely tedious and kind of things. So we've had some really proactive engagements with the Department of Home Affairs in the last few weeks. Um, Department of Justice and Constitutional Affairs, kind of thing. So, there is ways. I know everyone sort of thinks South Africa, the government doesn't listen to the people, but they actually do. Um, it takes a bit of effort, but you can make it work. So that kind of thing. And then, as I say, our consulting with businesses and corporates and those kind of things. And it's not only to deal with staff who may be transitioning, but customers. There are large businesses who deal with people, and they may deal with trans customers, and how to do some sensitizing training there as well. So that's what we try and do, what we do as an organization, and it's a lot to do.
Yeah, because I mean, you're talking about the support of an individual who's I'm sure battling with many things in their understanding of themselves, their immediate circle, and their questions and trying to understand and battle with something that may be completely new and unknown to them, and then how that person interacts in a work environment, both from a employee point of view, but as you say, maybe even as a customer, and then the whole advocacy of this community in the broader society, how that connects with government. Wow, when I think about all of those things, there's just layer upon layer and areas that you're involved in. And yeah, and maybe if I could just focus on one area for the moment, because if we're thinking about it in terms of business, and that is, what does it take? What is it that you would advise uh, people in a business setting? So, in the work environment, what are some of the things that you would be offering in your training in terms of the sensitization principles? So, what is it? What are the core things that we need to be aware of in order to be sensitive to somebody who's transitioning in the workplace, a colleague of mine or a customer, for instance?
So the key here is to do respect. And I think respect is such a wonderful word that we need to have. And once we can respect people and understand diversity, um, we're off to a better place. And so respect comes with acceptance, or just being able to acknowledge that the person is who they is, and not to have a hard head to say, I always knew you as a different person and that's what I'm going to have opinion, but to understand that this person has changed and adapted, kind of thing. Um, you know, if somebody comes along and changes their name and their pronouns, it's just to go with it. And people sort of say, well, I always knew you as someone else. Uh, if you take a very old concept where ladies will get married and their surname changes to their husband's name if that's what they choose, and you go to the workplace and say, my surname is now this because I'm married, everyone just adapts and changes it to Mrs. And they've got no mental block to that. So if a trans person is changing their name or their pronouns, it's the same kind of logic that you apply from a brain point of view, is just to adapt. Um, so that's a big thing, is just learning to accept and appreciate that this is the person that you're dealing with and to respect who they are. Um, that will go a long way in helping them in their transition. Um, it's also there not to judge people, and your opinions are still valid, but we need to understand that there's diversity in opinions, and nothing's absolute.
Leanne, what's the role of questions? Because I know you were very open to being asked questions, and that certainly helped me to understand you through the process that you had gone through, and helped and opened my eyes to, the trans community and some of the struggles that they go through. But I think also questions can be maybe too part of that judgment. And so I'm wondering, what, as a rule of thumb, because obviously each person is individual, and some people may not want people to ask questions and others may, but what do you see as the role of people asking questions of the journey and the process and getting to know what it's like to be a trans person?
So it's interesting. We sat through a workshop this weekend where that topic came up. Uh, Questions are very valid in the sense of respectful, not prying. So take a typical inappropriate question. It's like, what genitals are between your legs? Who cares? That doesn't need to matter. But a question of, tell me how you're feeling, how you got to this point, why, uh, kind of thing. Let me help understand, where do you want to go? Those kind of questions, from a respectful point of view of trying to offer support, is always going to be open. It's when you start asking prying questions or inappropriate questions that you're going to get people's back up.
Well, those were perfect examples of what question not to ask and what question to ask. So thank you for that. Yeah, okay. So thank you. Inclusivity in the workplace. How can we do it better?
Sure.
I'm sorry, I just threw that one at you.
No, that's a good question. Yeah, in the workplace, someone at a very simple level is there employed to do a job. Um, and that's all that they're there for. Um, and to allow people to be their best in the workplace and to give them the space to deliver. That's what's important. Having the the part of you with this person for 8 hours a day or 12 hours a day, and life happens in the workplace, definitely is a valid point. But the primary role in a workplace is to deliver a service to your employee, and for you as an employer to get the best out of your employee. And so if the employee is in a very safe space, a space where they can just be who they are and work without stress, they'll be a way more effective in delivering their service. So that's, at a very philosophical layer, um, exclusive. How do we, just welcome everyone? Is to see everyone as just equals. And yes, some people have got more experience and more skills, um, and to rely on that, but just to see everyone for who they are, and what they can deliver, and to develop them as people for your business to deliver. Obviously, if you've got a trans person, and you're talking to customers or things, it's just say, we've got this person, they've transitioned, refer to them as their identified gender, their identified name, and carry on as if nothing's out of place. That gives customers um, this confidence to know that you have confidence in the employee, and that's
Mm,
what they want to see. If
mm,
if you're showing doubt on your employees, that's when customers get scared. And
mm.
I'm not even talking about gender diversity. That's just in general. It's-
Yes, yes. That the very first rule of thumb is: do you trust your employee, and demonstrate that in the confidence that you have in introducing them, and putting them in the place that you want them to shine.
your employees are your biggest marketing tool.
Mm,
And if you don't have a happy employee, you're not going to have good marketing from your
mm, mm,
employees when they're around at a braai or something.
mm,
Um, they're not going to give your business a good name if
mm,
you're not looking after your staff.
mm, 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 mm. And how well are we doing? I mean, in South Africa, we've got this amazing constitution, and you've spoken about the fact that although it might not be easy, you actually have made headway with the government, speaking to the Department of Home Affairs. I mean, that they are open to listening, and open to adapting, and understanding what it's like to be a trans person, to be and to have a more inclusive society. But what are the general population or the workplace? How well are we doing in terms of our understanding of diversity and inclusivity across the gender spectrum?
That's a lot of your big business are very protective of their image, that they know that they can't discriminate, that they will get hurt both publicly and um, in court for discrimination. So they're very clever um, in the way that they protect people. But there's always a way. If you want to get someone out of the business, you always find a legal loophole to do it in. Um, and so we've seen that where it's happening. Um, Small businesses are a lot tougher to challenge, a lot tougher to enforce, kind of thing. Um, and and organizations like ourselves are really under resourced to have to provide services to take on companies, um, especially small businesses where it really is more difficult to take that on. Um, but generally, I think we're in a good place. I think there's also a lot of misperception, both as trans people and as employees, of what your real rights are and not. Um, and I would always just encourage people to have honest conversations with the staff and with the employees, and just let them know what's happening, and not let people assume, because assumptions always are the most dangerous part of it, kind of thing. But it does mean that you don't always have to come and explain yourself. I know that contradicts what I'm saying, but you need to understand, both as an employee and an employer, that if there are changes, um, that there could be a very practical reason to it, and that the person may not feel comfortable. But from an employment as whole, um, yeah, things like microaggression and people going for interviews and those kind of things, it's really difficult that people who are suited for the job don't get the job, um, maybe because they're trans, and when you're fighting against other candidates, um, who are equally qualified, um, so there is those kind of levels of micro discrimination that you just can't prove, kind of thing. So we do see that. So it is difficult, but people who can carry themselves and their names, do succeed, but it is a challenge. We can't deny that.
Mm, mm. Leanne, it's so good to, these are conversations sometimes that we don't have enough of. And so it's good to that you provide such a open platform to be able to share the information, to be true to who you are, and that gives freedom to everyone. Actually, doesn't matter who we are. We often have our own identity crises and searching that we can be. We all long, don't we, to know who that person is within us that makes us feel most comfortable in our own skin. And so to be true to ourselves is a real it's a journey, and it's something that we all desire and seek at the bottom of our hearts. And if we giving it to ourselves, surely we want to extend that to everybody, that they too can feel their true selves. And as you say, we respect that for each person. Uh, Anything else from your side, Leanne, that you want to share, that you think would be important for us to know? Uh, and otherwise, we can wrap up and just say thank you.
Yeah, I think for me, it's just to see the opportunity in people, the opportunity in um, changes, even like this year. Um, we as an organization, um, like most, had to adapt and say, well, we couldn't meet physically, and we moved very quickly into an online space that has grown immensely, kind of thing. As I said, there's challenges with data, especially to low income people to get access, uh, kind of thing. So yeah, so that is really where uh, companies can come and help us, from a charitable point of view, and help resource us financially, or with tools or devices or those kind of things, that we can have our teams carry on working. That for me is like sort of my plea. Um, but I think for me, it's the fact that we can adapt, and that we can offer diversity, and be able to touch people without geographic boundaries, has been my highlight of the year.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Uh, that even in the most difficult of times, we find, and I've said this over and over in many of the interviews that I've had, is that we find a way, and this ability of human beings to adapt, and and there's pros and cons in the new form, but in so many ways we discover things that we never knew or realized before, and it opens, as you said, opens a door, and that door could be bigger than what you initially even realized. And so it does mean that we keep our eyes open for those opportunities, and that we can be reassured that we can adapt. And as you say, that adaptation is not only to technology, but even to understanding that somebody is going through a transition, and we can adapt to the name that they choose and the pronouns that they choose. And that too is entirely possible because that's what we do as human beings, is we adapt.
Sure. The other very interesting thing we see, that between Christmas and New Year is often when people on holiday, they're thinking, and come out, if we can use such a term of coming out, as trans or gender diverse. But with the lockdown and people being stuck at home, the amount of people who have admitted to the world, admitted to themselves that they're trans, has been phenomenal, especially the first couple months into the COVID lockdown, has been really incredible. That's unprecedented to see in years gone by. So I don't know how you correlate that to anything, but it's a lot of work, and emotional work from our team, having to help people and getting access to information and getting access to healthcare, especially when they couldn't move around, or being in lockdown with families that weren't supportive. So yes, it's been an incredible year.
Wow. Well, thank you for sharing that, because was not aware of that at all. And as you say, you can imagine that people having time on their hands now, and that then forces a kind of self-reflection and an opportunity to say, this is now or never. I need to declare my true self, or how I'm feeling, and that just then builds this wave, and you then become the conduit through which people can say, I need help. Wow, so you've really had a lot on your plate. And as you say, thank goodness you've got a team, and you've built that team, and it's a really wonderful team that also is diverse in its own way, isn't it? And so each has their own skill and story, and able to share in an incredible way, with this swell of people saying, can I also go on this journey, and I need people to walk with me through it. And so just to say to those who are watching that you will have seen that there will be the website information is shared, and Leanne's contact. So if you want to get hold of Leanne and be true to me, you're welcome to do that. And of course, Leanne, we've focused on your nonprofit and your journey as trans, but it's also as this incredible business owner, adapting and working in a high-tech environment with small businesses and big corporates, that we really appreciate what you've shared and everything that you've been able to tell us over this time. And we wish you well, and that you just go from strength to strength. I know you're be on holiday, so that little picture in the background is actually to indicate that you are at the beach so I hope you now have the relaxing time. I know you're going to work now, but and that you will at least take some time off and relax and just enjoy some peace and quiet. I hope you do that.
Thank you so much. I do need it.
I'm
And thank you
sure.
so much, Leigh, for this. I really do appreciate it. And thanks for the support that you've given me over the last 30 years and my transition. I really do appreciate it.
With lots of love. Thanks, Leanne. All the best.
Pleasure.
Bye.
Bye.